Hi, I'm Danny and these are my Diecast Disasters. In this video I'm going to be customizing and kind of restoring a Matchbox Speed King's Fuzz Buggy or Bandolero. These were produced from 1973 until 1976. The Bandolero version was blue and it had some big chrome blowers on top of the motor, and the Fuzz Buggy was white, like a police version, with an orange door on it, and instead of the chrome blowers it had some kind of black ones with some police lights on them. So taking a closer look at it off the turntable, you can see that the door isn't closing properly. Somebody's given it a blue paint job. Doesn't look so great, it's not a very tidy paint job. And the blowers are missing off the top of the motor. They put some green paint underneath to detail it. I'm not really sure what this car was based off, as far as I understand, Bandolero is a entry-level racing class. They race small cars. Can't imagine them racing cars with twin V8s in them. So the first step is to drill out the rivets and take the car apart. These Kings models usually come apart pretty cleanly because they've got the metal bases on them. I can now strip the paint off the car with a little bit of poly stripper. A little bit of steel wool is used to remove these remaining patches of paint. I follow this with the wire brush on my rotary tool, removing any remaining paint and oxidation from the casting. Next I drill and tap the rivet posts with a 1.7mm drill and a 256 tap. The front rivet post was very short, so I couldn't go very deep. I screw in some button head screws. I had to shorten the front screw. I do this by holding it in the chuck on one of my drills and then grinding it down with a stone in my rotary tool. There's quite an unsightly casting line running down the side of this car, so I think I might tidy that up. One more touch up with the wire brush. I also clean up these rivet posts that are holding the window in so that it's not too difficult to push the window on later on. I paint the body of the car with iridescent blue from Mission Models. I haven't used this paint before, so it'll be interesting to see how it comes out. While that's curing, I move on to the base. The first thing I'm going to do is pop out these wheels and axles. They were actually a bit stubborn on this particular model. Before I strip the paint off of the base, I mask the plastic parts with some masking tape. Make sure you do a decent job of this because the stripper will damage the plastic. Next, I tidy up the casting with the wire brush, removing the oxidation and remaining paint. This is painted black. I give it a few highlights with some silver finishing powder. And this was all fixed with a coat of clear. The plastic parts were all in good condition apart from having paint on them and the usual worn chrome on the grille. So I use my usual method of some hot water and a little bit of caustic soda. Unfortunately, this time round it did end up damaging the windscreen a little bit. I'm not quite sure why this happened, as I've used this technique a lot of times before and never had any problems, but it ended up making the orange plastic windscreen go a little bit cloudy. I sanded it and polished it down a couple of times. It really didn't make any difference. Anyway, hindsight is 2020, and I'll file that experience away for future reference. The interior, on the other hand, is looking great. I pop out the steering wheel and paint it silver. I then detail it with some blue and black paint. The next step was to fabricate some new blowers. I glued 3 layers of thick styrene together, then I cut out the shape of the blowers. I used my rotary tool to carve 45-degree angles around the edges, then I can file and sand them round. I then used a round burr to cut out the scoop in the front. I made some little spaces and then I can stick the blowers on top of the 2 motors. That's looking pretty good. I give it a base coat of black. And then a top coat of chrome. I figured that I'd replace these horrible Speed Kings wheels with some Super Kings wheels. The front ones are a little bit large, but they still look alright. I just gave these a clean up, re-chromed the rims. And so here are all of our parts, refurbished, repainted, and ready to go back together. You can see here where I've detailed the interior with the black and blue seats. Here is the windscreen. It doesn't look terrible, but when you see it on the car, you can see it's a bit cloudy. And the motor with a little bit of a black wash on it. The car went back together pretty easy with the screws. Before we take a look at our finished Fuzz Buggy Bandolero, let's take a moment to look back and be reminded of what we started with. It's a scruffy looking old thing with a rough blue paint job, some missing blowers, paint on the windscreen and wheels. It's a bit of a die-cast disaster that you wouldn't really want to take to the racetrack. And here it is, our completed custom Bandolero. It's looking much smarter now with the iridescent blue paint job, which I personally think came out looking great. The blowers have been replaced and the motor re-chromed and detailed. It's got detailed rear lights, the base has been tidied up, and it's got some much better looking wheels on it. Unfortunately, I still couldn't get the door to close all of the way. It's like the interior and the windscreen are hitting up against each other. The front wheels might be a tiny bit large, but I still think they look heaps better than the old Speed Kings ones. So it's off down the racetrack for a photo shoot. And while we take a look at some more images of the car, I'll just take a moment to welcome all of my new subscribers and say a big thanks to everyone for the great comments and likes on my videos. And an extra special thanks to my awesome Patreon supporters. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can check out my Patreon page. There'll be a link in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe.